Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Logistics, where we have conversations with thought leaders and newsmakers in the supply chain logistics industry. It's my great pleasure to welcome today's program Jennifer Phillips, who's Director of Transportation at Riviana, Zach Dale, who's Supply Chain Continuous Improvement Manager at Riviana, and Tom Moore, who's a partner at Transportation Warehouse Optimization. And today we're going to talk about using optimized load building to reduce transportation costs. Now, finding available trucking capacity is often a challenge, especially when demand is high. The sad truth, however, is that a lot of capacity gets wasted too. We see this, for example, a lot when there's a lot of backhauls that happen every day, as an example, on empty miles. There's another form of wasted capacity, however, that many shippers overlook, and that is wasted capacity due to sub-optimized load plans. Simply put, trailers are leaving facilities not fully loaded to the maximum legal capacity. So why is this happening? What benefits can companies achieve by addressing this challenge, and how can technology help? Well, those are some of the key questions that we're going to address in today's episode. And it's great to have Jennifer, Zachary, and Tom to share their insights and advice on this topic. So welcome, everyone.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Thank you.
Good to catch up, Adrian. It was good to have you with a thought leader.
Great. Well, certainly appreciate all of you making the time, because I think this is a very important topic. Whenever I talk to transportation professionals, supply chain professionals, they're always looking for opportunities to drive efficiencies in their operations, reduce costs, and find ways to contribute to the business in positive ways. And I think this is an area that is a missed opportunities for many companies, and an area that they need to be focusing on more. So Jennifer, let's start with you. Many people might be familiar with Riviana. Some people may not be familiar with the company. So before we dive into this topic, why don't you tell us a little bit about the company, a little bit about your planning and logistics operations, and your role at the company.
All right, will do. So my name is Jennifer Phillips, Director of Transportation at Riviana. So Riviana Foods is part of Abro, that's based out of Madrid, Spain. So it's a global company. We're all over the world. So big presence in all over the place. But in the United States, you'll know us best as our Carolina, Mahatma, Minute Rice, Success Rice, all the ready to serve Minute Rice little cups. Then we get into specialties with Rice Select, like couscous and blended rices and red rice and all kinds of wild rice. And then we have some ethnic ones and such, like Tilda and others. So it's quite diverse. So our sales were over $1 billion last year, just in rice products, which is pretty good for only selling rice, right? So the complexity there is that, you get everything from rice cups that are very airy, lightweight, to cases of 320-pound bags of rice in them, right? So we have a broad range of pallet weight, stuff that's, you got to be careful how they're stacking it, etc. So the other thing Memphis does as well is supplies all the Minute Rice to our sister company in Canada, Riviana Foods Canada. So all Minute Rice sold in Canada is shipped from the Memphis plant. So they're a pretty big operation for us. They ship boxcar, intermodal, truckload, of course, hardly any LTL. There's some customer pickup for some industrial sales and food service. But other than that, it's mainly boxcar, a lot of intermodal and truckload. So over 10,500 shipments last year out of the Memphis plant. So that just kind of gives you the scale of it.
Yeah, no, but very, very interesting. Certainly a lot of diversity in the types of products that you're shipping, and certainly, complexity also in the operations itself. Being Cuban, I eat a lot of rice, so I am a big fan of your products, and contribute to some of those, among your best customers, if you will. So let's get now into the topic, Jennifer. Maybe you can kick us off here. We titled the episode "Using Optimized Load Building to Reduce Transportation Costs." So with regards to load building, and I think you kind of alluded to it a little bit in your introductory remarks there, but with regards to load building, I mean, what were some of the business challenges or improvement opportunities that you were looking to address?
So if you remember, fuel in the middle of 2022 started skyrocketing out of control. our cost per hundredweight was going up. We also were not near the industry standard in average weight per load for solid truckloads of all pallets, all maximizing the maximum weight per load. So we were below industry standard. We kept tracking that, and our cost per hundredweight just kept going up. And that's our big factor there. So again, like I said, we've got light and heavy things going on. So we needed to find a way to challenge what we were setting as the max weight per load in SAP to be able to build loads, or in our planning system to build truckloads to go out to the distribution centers. Part of it's due to the loader turnover, the lack of any pallet patterns. Loaders get a load, they just go and they pick it and put it on the trailer any way they want. So lack of dunnage or wrong dunnage spacing, maybe heavy on top of light, etc. Those type of things. Not turning pallets, loading them straight in. So we ended up with a lot of damages at the DC, a lot of rework at the DC. There were a lot of times that we would get trailers back over axle because they're with such a broad range of pallet weight that they're loading. It was at the mercy of each loader to they're out there just loading a load. And, Memphis is a 7-day operation. So it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there's a lot of different loaders. Training and, the turnover and all of that is difficult when you're dealing with those many variables. So that was the main thing. And then the other, of course, was we're tracking sustainability with Ebro in Spain. And so, of course, with the emissions and reducing the number of loads and the savings, not only in freight costs and cost per hundredweight, but also in the sustainability side of the arena.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, I think, the challenges you brought up, I think are common for many companies, because I hear, same types of things, particularly when you've got a, diversity of products. And, sometimes you're being driven by, we just have to, we have to get the product out. And, in terms of having a consistent process in place or some kind of discipline in place defined to be able to do it in the most efficient and effective way possible is, something that is lacking in many companies. I think the other aspect is, you brought up sustainability. And I think that's another area that we're hearing a lot more from shippers as well. That's driving a lot of initiatives around transportation management, considering the role that transportation plays in carbon emissions and just in being able to achieve the sustainability goals that companies have. Zach, before I bring you into the conversation, I want to go over to Tom real quick. Just to talk a little bit about the technology side of things. I mean, a lot of companies have, there's a lot of existing supply chain logistics software out there, whether it's transportation management systems or planning systems or ERPs. I mean, what have been the main constraints or limitations to solving this load building, optimization challenge before? And what new capabilities are available today to help companies, optimize their loads more effectively?
Now, one of the problems, Adrian, is this is a very complex issue. Right? What stacks on what? Jen mentioned this, new loaders don't know that you don't put the bricks on top of the eggs. How much weight do the actual physical wood pallets add to the load? Can these things stack wide in the trailer? Can we double stack this item and not double stack that item? All these various things. And then you throw into it our patchwork of different legal requirements around the country for where the axles can be placed to get the load legal. So, it's one thing to maximize a load. It's another one to maximize a load, show how it can be loaded, and make sure it's legal. And as Jen pointed out, damage free, because there's no value in shipping something that's going to get damaged. So, you compound that, and Jen's done a good job of negotiating contracts with trucking companies that have lightweight equipment. Well, unfortunately, we don't have we've got an infinite amount. We've only got a finite amount of that. So we need to build a certain number of loads to match out with the higher weight for those trucks, and then the lower payload weights for the balance of the trucks. So there's a constant set of challenges that you're dealing with. And complexity is one of these things that people have said, oh, we'll just keep it simple. Unfortunately, simple does cost you a lot more money in the long run.
It's interesting because, I've been following, transportation management technology and practices for going on over 24 years now. And it never ceases to amaze me. I mean, you look at the whole life cycle of transportation management. I mean, you just pick one area, load building, you realize just how complex and how much variables go into it to do it right. And this is just one aspect of the whole end-to-end process. But this one aspect can have a ripple effect, like you said, Jen brought up before, and you reiterated, it can have a ripple effect on, the damages, right? Which again is an additional cost there. It can have a ripple effect on the warehousing staff and rework that's required and so forth. And I think, I think both of you have done a nice job to kind of underscore the complexity that's involved in this load building process. And, obviously this is an area where you can try to do it with an Excel spreadsheet, but as we've all learned over the years, Excel is just not going to cut it when you have so many variables. And ideally, you want to optimize, you want to leverage the power of optimization and technology, to do it right, and not only do it right, but also do it, follow the regulations that are involved with, truck weights and things like that. So, very fascinating. So, Zach, let me bring you into the conversation now. When kind of embarking on this journey, I mean, what were some of the key objectives or metrics that you wanted to improve? And as you started looking for technology solutions, I mean, what factors ultimately led you to transportation warehousing optimization?
Sure. Yeah. Jen covered some of this, so I'm going to reiterate some of what she said. But our main objectives and metrics: sustainability, freight spend, the load quality, the loader turnover and training and knowledge, as well as damage reduction. So what kind of led us in this direction? We were working on a warehouse automation project, which was separate from this. And within that project, our consultant showed us what our load weights looked like and how, they were kind of all over the place, overall lower than the standard, which I think we had some idea of, but the tool that we were using at the time was not robust enough for what we needed for our range of weights, products, sizes. So it really only maximized to a certain weight level, not necessarily legality. So didn't take into account axles, stackability, product dimensions. So it really wasn't what we needed to fully maximize the trucks. So having that in the back of my mind when I was doing research for sustainability, one of Riviana's big objectives, I came across an article which featured Auto02, which explained, their product allows for fewer trucks, therefore less emissions, which improves the sustainability. So through that, and with the knowledge of our weights per load from the previous project, I started researching Auto02. Found out not only can they help us become more sustainable, but also can fulfill those other objectives, the loading, the quality, the spend. So really, right off the bat, it looked like a great fit just from the initial research. And throughout the process, it was just reiterated how well of a fit it was going to be for Riviana, because like Jen was saying, we're having issues with loading. I mean, the loaders were using the knowledge that they had of the product, and that was about it. So go load this. They know, well, this is heavy. It should go on the bottom. So we were running into, like Jen said, the axle issues. So really, Auto02 fit with Riviana and really fulfill each one of those objectives. And overall, we went with Auto02 because of the team. So Tom and his team and their experience with large CPG companies for many years, their proven success. The team was very flexible and made a lot of customization for Riviana, which was really great. They took in suggestions, from the team, from the warehouse team, on how to make the tool the best that they could for them and easiest to use. So really the communication, the experience, and really the offerings from Auto 02 led us to partner with them for this project.
Great. I mean, I think what strikes me is that, the business case, the value proposition was multidimensional. So it wasn't just predicated on just, the load building aspect of it, of what you would think the load building, but, you had the sustainability, you had, these other, aspects to it as well. So I can imagine that from a business case standpoint, you were able to develop a strong ROI model, if you will, a business case, for this investment. And I think the other thing that struck me that you said was, as part of your partnership with Tom and transportation warehousing optimization, is the ability to bring in the input from the people in the front lines of us, to make it fit or align with their expectations, how they work and so forth. And I think that's always an important thing, because sometimes you have to get that buy-in from the end user, to use this, and being able to listen to their needs or the questions that they have and their input to make it align to their day-to-day work. Sounds like it was an important part of this. So let's just stick with you there for a second. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about how you went about implementing the solution? Maybe what have been some of the benefits, to date? Any unexpected benefits?
Yeah, absolutely. So to start the project off, we assembled a cross-functional team. So we had IT, obviously, operations planning, transportation, distribution, the plant warehouse team, the plant management team, plant engineering. So we made sure to include someone from every aspect of the supply chain, so we really could understand the impact across the network. For example, we included distribution because, well, now we're mixing more product on the truck, so we need to make sure that they understand the impact. We understand if it will be an impact for unloading, and just situations like that. We tried to include, like I said, someone from each team, so we understood every aspect that was going to be affected. An important piece from the start was we ensured that everyone understood the reason for this project, the importance of the project, and overall just why we're doing this, why we're making this pretty big change for the warehouse. And that was a key aspect of this. So from the, like you said earlier, from the front line to management, everyone understood what we were doing, why we were doing it, and the importance of following the process, following the loading diagrams, etc. So that was the first step. And then IT got the systems communicating fairly quickly, and that went well and smoothly with the teams. And then once the communication was implemented, the team went through several test scenarios. We included everyone from the team I explained earlier, so everyone understood, every aspect of it. So the management understood the loading diagrams as well as the loaders. Everyone understood each piece, so they knew how it all fit together and worked together. And through that, we went through the go live. Tom and his team were great support, 24/7 support, and continue to be. And I just wanted to emphasize earlier, I explained their flexibility. It really benefited Riviana. It was a big asset to us, that flexibility. Even little things like adjusting the loading diagram, adjusting, taking out a button click here, there, and just making the system as best as it can be for Riviana and as smooth as it can be. And the go live went very well. Right off the bat, we saw a 4% increase in weight per load almost instantly. The return, was months, not years. The return was very quick. And overall, I think it went really well. And we saw, like I said, the impacts and the metrics improve pretty rapidly.
That's great. So go ahead.
If I can add a bit there, Adrian, we need to give a little shout out for Zach too, because he did a lot of, I'll call it tribal knowledge adjustment. Okay. There was a ton of, we've always done it this way, or trucks can only haul this amount of weight. And, it's amazing when you go out and get data, like he had them run empty trucks over the scale to see how much their payload could be. And so he's done a number of things to gently bring the team along and get them to a point where they can say, yeah, we do it this way because it's the right way to do it, not just because we've always done it that way.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that was going to be my takeaway too, because, sometimes it could be, and I've seen this happen in other organizations where if that communication, that education process is not done right, if you don't get the buy-in or the input from the cross-functional team, it quickly becomes, this is a transportation project, right? And it's like, what's in it for me, or why should we be doing this? And it sounds like you put the process in place to really not make this a transportation project, but make this a Riviana project, right? This is for the benefit of the entire business and why we need to be doing this. And there's going to be benefits, yes, from transportation standpoint, but it's going to be benefits in the warehouse as well. It's going to be benefits from the sustainability goals at the corporate level, so on and so forth. So it sounds like you did a nice job there in terms of educating and getting that buy-in from all the critical stakeholders at the company. Tom, I think it's tempting sometimes to think, well, maybe this type of solution is only applicable for, the big companies, the big shippers, or maybe, companies that have the complexity of a Riviana. I mean, is this, what's the sweet spot for, this type of solution? I mean, is this applicable for mid-size and smaller companies too?
It is. And traditionally, it's been the progressive thinking big companies that have adopted this. They are the Unilevers of the world. Okay? And as you mentioned, yes, there's benefits to be gained. Jen mentioned they're doing about 10,000 loads a year out of Memphis, and they're getting significant benefits. And I think I heard probably for the first time the payback was months. They don't generally tell vendors what the payback is, so good news for them. The overall question is what's the kind of the break-even point? Okay. And I'd say the break-even point's about 5,000 loads on an annual basis, which is about 100 loads a week. So, is that valuable? Yes. And it's also important to recognize that, while transportation management systems are called management systems, they really are only doing things once they have the shipment. So it's really in that bridge between the planning system and the execution system where load building falls, and we have to work on that, make sure that bridge is effective, not just for the planning solution, but also for the execution piece, which goes all the way down to the loader, which Zach and Jennifer were talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's great, great insight there. And I often talk about that. Sometimes some of the biggest opportunities in transportation management are in those white spaces, and I think this is one of those examples of a white space that is not well addressed by some of these other enterprise systems that companies have in place. That helps to bridge that gap, if you will, and be able to deliver these types of benefits. So as a way to wrap up, and maybe Zach, we'll start with you, Jennifer, bring you back into the conversation here and get your thoughts as well. And Tom, you can wrap us up. I mean, what words of advice or recommendations would you give to, other companies that are just getting started on this journey? So Zach, why don't you kick us off there?
Sure. Yeah. I think it's important to know where you are at today, the as is. Really understand what's going on in your business, in your supply chain, to understand the benefits that a project like this could give you. And I think, as I explained how we went about this project, it's important to include everyone from the start, and that's everyone, the warehouse staff up to director level, plant management. And it really helps with buy-in if you give them time to explain their concerns, explain their thoughts on the project, on the solution. I just think that's one of the most valuable things that we did, because as Tom was saying, it's tough sometimes to get the teams to change their ways of doing things. They've been doing the same thing 24/7 for how many years, you know? So that's a huge challenge to start off with changing something like this. So just involving everybody and listening, I think, are very important. And you know, just having the open communication, again, is just very important.
Great, Jen. Jennifer, any thoughts or things you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I think it was critical having, you know, Zach boots on the ground, Tom's team boots on the ground in Memphis. You know, our IT team that was working on this was in Spain. So, you know, there's parties all across the world that were working on this. So, you know, getting the timing of meetings and all those things, coordinating that. But just the level of just from the people in the shipping office in Memphis saying, hey, could we do this? Can you make this happen? And sure, we can customize that. Yeah, that's a great idea. You know, just the flexibility that Tom's company allowed us with the product. It's not a one out of the box and here it is. And that's what you deal with, right? And you're not paying every time you ask for a little change before go live to make it even better. The nice thing now is that now we're challenging the weights now. Can we increase them even more on these? Because we haven't had any over axles and we haven't had this, and load condition looks good. So we're tweaking the max weight per load now up, especially on some of that ultralight equipment. You know, we have to look between intermodal and dry vans. You know, of course, the intermodal boxes are a little heavier, but you know, the California bridge laws and all, so those type things. So we continue to tweak it. And I think that the savings, you know, the savings are supposed to be over $1 million a year just in this one plant. So, you know, now we're looking at what about our Freeport, Texas plant? Who's next, right? So where else can we use this and take advantage of it for the increased weight per load, better load quality, better condition of the product, all of those things, easier to train, and of course, affecting the sustainability.
Great. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously you've gotten a lot of learnings already from this, you know, first rollout, and now, you know, obviously have the opportunity to expand, you know, these learnings and this opportunity to the other, you know, facilities as well. Tom, wrap it up with you, based on your experience, not only with Riviana, but with other companies you work with, you know, words of advice for folks that are just getting started on this journey.
First of all, I think Zach nailed it. He said, you got to understand where you are right now. One of the things that we've done with prospective customers is to say, okay, give us some data and we'll run it and see where could you be. So we know where we are, where we could be, what a great situation. And then you can start to understand, you know, how big the prize is. You know, we've done a lot of these implementations in a lot of companies, and you know, one size does not fit all. Okay? And you got to manage around the real world constraints, and you got to make people feel that their input is important, which it is. The main planner who does all this at the plant is a lady by the name of Venus, and shout out to Venus because she's just fantastic. And by the way, just as a side note, I was actually spent time on site because Memphis is not far from where I live. I think they got about the worst installer we have in the company. It was me, because I think I've only done it personally, a couple of them in the years. So they probably got the worst experience, but you know, it really does help to have a good working relationship and a good back and forth with all the parties. And you know, you say, why are we getting plant engineering involved? Why are we getting these guys involved? Because they all had input and it was valuable input. So summary, there's a lot of opportunity here. Let's understand how much that opportunity is. And then once we understand that opportunity, let's work as a team to go and get it and get it implemented in a way that, you know, brings money to the bottom line. And I'm going to say I'm delighted and happy that it was months of pay, you know, before you were, you know, back into real positive cash flow. It's a fantastic testimony.
Great. Well, I think we covered a lot of ground today. You know, first of all, congratulations on the success story. Certainly I learned a lot in this conversation, and I'm sure many of our viewers will as well, in terms of, the opportunity that's here, before them, in terms of, like I said in my opening remarks, this is an opportunity that I think a lot of companies have that perhaps they've overlooked in the past. And, it's something that I think the more companies know about it and understand how to go about it, I think it's beneficial for everyone. So, Jennifer, Zach, Tom, again, thank you very much for making the time to be with us today and sharing your story.
Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Great. I want to thank those of you that joined us. If you're watching this episode on demand, either at the Transportation Warehousing Optimization website or on Talking Logistics, and you've got a question for any of our guests today, you can post it there, and I'm sure they'll be more than happy to respond via that medium. And again, thank you, and look forward to seeing you in a future episode of Talking Logistics. Have a great day.